Hello, everyone. I hope I'm well heard across Europe. I welcome you to the How to Circular Design session. And today we will be talking about the European Green Deal and we as designers, what can we do about it? And if you can turn your cameras on, that would be lovely so that it feels more like an audience. Your mic's off, unless you really want to say something very, very important, and that will be appreciated as well. So about today's topic, not to linger on too long on it. This January, the European Commission launched the new European Bauhaus initiative. So what is it? How do I eat it? What does it try to solve? So it's about living spaces, but can we understand better what it is? In order to sort this out, there are three brilliant people to explain it to us and share some light. So first of all, we'll hear Kinge Gardien from the Grow Consultants in Sweden. After her, I welcome Päivi Tahkokallio from the Bureau of European Design Associations, and she will be joining us from Lapland. Vera Winthagen from the European Commission will give the point of view of the Commission, and she is also the head of the European Bauhaus team, so she should know every bit about it. On behalf of the Estonian Design Centre, I'm moderating it. My name is Mikkin. I'm a service designer keen on introducing circular design into business and broader society as a whole. Speaking to you from Tallinn, Estonia, but it's not just about Estonia. So in our audience today, we have people from Finland to Germany to Portugal, and that's gorgeous. What the session is about is how to apply this new initiative, the sustainable way of thinking, to our individual countries, but also building a momentum across Europe. So after the three talks, we'll have a discussion. Please write down all your questions. Don't be shy. And I have to note that this session is recorded, so you are noted now. And I'm giving the stage to Kinge. Welcome.
Yes, thanks a lot. Can you see my screen, hear me well? All okay? Yeah, I see a thumbs up. That's always good. All right, well, thanks for having me. It's great to be back again. My name is Kinge Gardien. I am working with a company called Grow. I'll introduce Grow in a bit. I'm Circular Economy Manager there. And today I'm gonna talk about how we are practically applying circular design. So we're going to start with the practicalities before diving more into theories. So I'll talk about Grow, how we work together with the value chain on the future of packaging. I'll exemplify that with Baboko. That's one of our case studies. It's the paper bottle. Some of you might have seen it before. And I'm going to share with you some of our lessons learned from that. So first of all, who we are. We are a design agency based in Stockholm. You can see on this photo the building right in the middle with the minty green. That's where we are. We're around 50 people, mainly work around design, packaging design, innovation, and brand development. And since 2018, we're also part of Digitalist Group, which has studios all across the world, and they have a great expertise in tech which we think is a good enhanced capability to have, especially in this day and age, thinking about software, AI. And just to show some of the faces of the team, this is the people from Grow in Stockholm office. And some of the companies that we work with, it's mainly Scandinavia, but as value chains are definitely not only in Scandinavia, we work with people across Europe, across the globe, and the breadth of scope is really growing and growing. And with that, I'm going to focus more specifically on the future of packaging. So that's one of our focus areas where we take a collaborative approach to innovation. You can see some of the images. They're all projects that we've done and the companies that we work together with. And you can see that's really a collaboration between scientists, inventors, industrials, and brands. And we together want to make that change, that positive change. So we're also talking about a shared risk, a shared award between the brands, industry, startups, and also working together with scientific institutes enables a broader analysis, which helps with a more direct focus on actual implementation. So it's really about investing together in the future we're building. And to go one more step specifically, this is how we've simplified the value chain of packaging, because of course it's way more complex than this. And for every project that we're working on, we work together with a group of partners towards a set goal. So here you can see some imagery of the projects that we've been working on. On the left side, it's from Hinoki. It's travel-sized facial cream, personal care. On the right top side, it's a reusable jar for face cream with a cyclable component where you actually have the cream in. And then right below is the paper bottle that I'll dive into a little bit later. But what you can see through these images are some of our building blocks of the way we work. And that's that all these cases involve new materials and new technology. So the materials that you see in these images, they're all made from wood. So even the jar on the right upper side, that's a new technology. It looks like glass, but it's actually made from wood pulp. And all these cases are established through collaborations between different partners in the value chain. So new tech companies, institutes, industrial companies, brand, retail, and of course, very importantly, the user as well. The projects are created with a vision. We're showing here the SDGs, which are very important, and especially together with circular economy. But once we go down to earth, like we actually start working on the projects, we need goals and a vision that's more specific. So they're of course tailored to the partners, to the value chain around the specific project that we're working on. And to round it up, we use a scope of design methodologies really guiding the process. So for example, focusing on user experience, but also very importantly, rapid prototyping. And that's also what you see here in these images. That's all prototyping done iteratively along the way to really visualize what we're talking about. So Paper Bottle is one of the first projects that actually led up to the Future of Packaging Lab and its way of working. So I think in line with how today is structured from practice into theory, that's also kind of, it's also how we have worked on this. It's from a practical project, a way of working got out of it. So we're gonna dive a little bit more into that with the Paper Bottle. It started in 2015, and the vision was to create a bottle that's first of all 100% renewable and also 100% recyclable. So you might think, why first renewable and then recyclable? And that has to do with our notion of recycling. So indeed, we need to make sure that all of our products get either composted or recycled. However, recycling is not our holy grail. If we keep using fossil fuel materials like PET, like the bottles that they're now made from, even though they're 100% recycled and used after that again, which is also often not really the case at this moment, we would still not restore the planet. So to really design effective systems, we not only need to look at the recyclability, but also at how regenerative our materials are. And that will lead us from doing less bad to actually doing more good, to be restorative and regenerative. So that's our reason to put renewable first and then recyclable. You can see an overview of the brands here that we were in the journey with. So ranging from industrial companies like Billerud-Korsnäs and Alpla to technological companies, and also the 4 brands that have kickstarted the journey together with. So they're Carlsberg, L'Oreal, Coca-Cola, and Absolut, the vodka brand. And Absolut is the one that I'll be showing you today. There we go, Absolut paper. So Absolut vodka is arguably one of the most iconic brands when you talk about packaging silhouette. It's super recognizable when you see it, and that's also really important for the brand. And retaining that recognizability whilst creating the first generation of a paper bottle was really one of the key design challenges with it. And in keeping with the long-standing tradition of Absolut, the packaging also needed to reflect the properties and the creative concept of the product, of the vodka. So there we go. Here you can see the first generation of Absolut paper. This is a mix with raspberry. That's why the pink color involved in it. So as you can see here, it's made from sustainably sourced wood fibers from Scandinavia. The outer shell is manufactured with a wet forming cellulose process, and that is the raw material before you make paper, so the paper pulp. And when you're making paper, you already have to use a lot of energy. So if you go directly to using paper pulp and skipping the step of using the paper, you actually save a lot of energy and emissions with it. Then the inside barrier, that is unfortunately still PET. So it's not only sunshine in this case study. There is a next generation where we're trying to transition to PEF, which is a bioplastic that can replace PET. But at the moment it's still PET, and it is 60 to 70% less material, which allows it to be recyclable within the material stream of paper, and it can be mechanically sorted when recycled in that stream. So there, it is there, but it's a big challenge of making this paper bottle, because in the end you're putting liquids in it. And then the cap, the final top. So here it's a regular metal cap for the Absolut bottles, but other brands are using different caps. So for example, L'Oreal uses it for cream, so they have a pump. So really depending on what needs, there are different materials are needed for the cap. So in September 2020, the first limited run of prototypes were produced for testing, and with another batch planned for spring 2021 to allow for continued innovation. But as I mentioned before, the overarching project is a long-term vision and commitment, and currently they are already in the next phase and being mapped out with a second generation down the line. So you can see here what an overview with highlights of what needs to be addressed in the second generation. And as you can see, there's actually quite a lot. So currently the outer shell is made, to just go through two things. The outer shell is made with wet forming. However, dry forming is also a new technology, and that would really be our next level for CO2 reduction, because it doesn't require water. And another element, as I mentioned before, is the barriers. So I've already mentioned the PEF that can be used instead of PET, but also other material routes are explored as well, because ultimately you only want to make it from wood fibers and have no plastics in it at all. So I want to share a few lessons learned from this, because there is a lot, and I tried to boil it down to 3. So essential really to success of these kind of projects is finding the right partners who share your vision. So the question central to this is, how do we unify the value chain? How do we unify all the different partners who have different needs, different aims? How can we all get them together? And having a clear vision that value chain actors can buy into and act upon is really paramount here. Next to that, and I think this is a really important one, is really that it's about a transition. So you might be a little doubtful about the circularity of the paper bottle, and I think you have all the right to be, as there are 3 different materials used, and generation 1 is using PET. But talking about a transition, it's simply not possible to go from nothing to everything. And with that, to have a fully renewable and recyclable paper bottle in generation 1, it's not possible. So it's not about implementing that generation 1, for example. It's really about a transition involving continuous iterations, interactions. And that's a tool we often use as a horizon model. So also what you see here, we have the vision on one side. 2015 was the starting point. So what are the steps to get there? And generation 1 is just one step to get towards that vision. And with that, I come to the 3rd point, and that's about visual communication and prototyping. That is really key. So there is a lot happening, and many companies are greatly working on this transition, but it can sometimes get a little bit dry and difficult to communicate about it. And these kind of projects like the paper bottle can really capture the interest and visually tell the story that we're trying to reach. And with that become a qualifier to talk about what they do when it comes down to sustainability. Visualization for us really allows us to educate a variety of stakeholders, but also really including the consumer. Because to redesign the system, we not only need to align the value chain, but also people's behaviors and how the products are used. We need to get that understanding as well. So I think that visualization really creates that curiosity that can allow us to educate. So communicating and prototyping goes really in line with many of the design decisions that we're making on how to get buy-in, how to get commitment, and also making the project accessible to communicate, making it attractive as well, very importantly. So that's the 3 main points I wanted to take out from the paper bottle case itself. But then there is also something about the process behind it. And maybe for this conversation here, that might be even more important. And that's taking one step back, zooming further out. And I think some of you might have noticed in the high level of comparison to systemic design way of working from what I've been talking about. But I think we really need to understand that many of the nowadays problems we're designing for are not simple. They're not like following a recipe. They're not complicated, like creating a rocket, but they're complex, like the weather. So it changes, and you never really know what to expect or what's around the next corner. One quote that quite often comes back, but I don't think it doesn't make it less relevant, is Mr. Einstein with his words, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." We cannot solve the complex problems today with more linear methodologies. So especially when we're looking at circularity, where we aim to design products with the right material for the right use, as durable or cyclable as possible and as clean as possible. There are just so many different contact factors that come into play. So it's really about connecting what is important and valuable to the user with taking into account that wider system where the product or service fits in. And questions that come up then are, what are actors involved with the product? What is the relationship between actors and the product? And how do the dynamics flow in that system? So that's in a nutshell how our practice got a little bit into theory with the paper bottle project and the jury that we're on mainly. We also use it for a wider variety of packaging now, so you can see some in the photos, but not really enough time to go into detail on that right now. And we're looking at using it for other projects and not only packaging as well. To just briefly share what's on our horizon, so Päivi is like the next generation is coming up, so there's a lot of work happening on that right now. Next to that, we're utilizing and iterating on systemic design as a principle, as a methodology, and we're using that in the value chain in other projects as well. So that's it for me. I'm really looking forward to hear your thoughts, hear your comments. So I put my email down here just in case anybody wants to get in touch. But yeah, really happy to hear your thoughts, and if there are any questions, let me know.
Yeah, we can take one question right now. There is one in the chat from Phoebe Blackburn, and the question is that it's not clear why the paper bottle is better than an easily recyclable glass bottle that we already have.
Yeah, that's a very fair question to ask. I think so it kind of comes back to what I talked before about recyclability versus renewability. And if we, so you mentioned a lot of different things here, but if we, for example, look at plastic versus paper, we cannot keep using plastic all the time, because it's just not going to help regenerate and restore what we've done till now. It's less bad, definitely, but it's not going to heal it, to say it like that. So we need other options as well. And I think then what comes up is symbiosis. So it's also not about having only one option. We need a variety of options that can work together really well. It's the analogy with the forest. You don't have one tree in the forest. It's a whole ecosystem. And then you talk about reusable. Yes, of course, if we can make more reusable, that would be perfect. That would be better. But if you look at it from a real world usage, it's really difficult to make that change. And it's happening as well. And there is a lot of research going into it. Here in Stockholm, there is now And Repeat, who collect cups, and they've also looked at reusable. But if you want to implement that in practice, it's very difficult, and you'll probably see that you both need cyclable and durable bottles to solve the beast, solve the problem.
Thank you, Kinge, for opening the subject. So let's see how your systemic approach applies to the new Bauhaus. So Päivi, should you do the honors and introduce us to the initiative, please?
Thank you, Dan. And I'm very happy to be here, obviously. I very much like to thank first Tia for inviting me to be part of your great event. What I would hope is that all of you, if you at all can, would keep your cameras on. I'm not going to show any slides. The downside of us using digital platforms all the time is that if you can't really see anyone, it's very hard to talk unless you get a feedback. So this is my decision nowadays, that I don't really do PowerPoint presentations anymore. I talk, and I hope that I can see people who I talk to. So new European Bauhaus initiative. I will say some words about it from my own point of view, and then Vera from the Commission's Bauhaus team will continue from a slightly different angle. But what I would like to take up first is When we talk about the new European Bauhaus initiative, the word new indicates that there's an old one as well. So what was it? And if I understand correctly, quite a few of you come from the creative fields, design field or architecture, or are otherwise connected to creative industries. So you must know your story and your history of the original Bauhaus. But I still want to say a couple of words about it, simply to try to make more understandable why there is or why there can be a new European Bauhaus. The original Bauhaus got started 100 years ago, 101 years ago exactly. And maybe the key point there is that there is perhaps something similar in the world in 100 years ago and the world today. The context where the old or the original Bauhaus was born was in the aftermaths of the First World War. So Europe was in turmoil, and there was a lot that needed to be rebuilt. The concrete built environment, obviously, but a lot related to the societies as well. The challenges were huge, and this is exactly what I think is similar to the world today. We are facing enormous challenges. They are different. Many of them are different in nature compared to 100 years ago. And of course, the biggest challenge we face, a global challenge, is climate change. And obviously, this is the reason why your group exists as well. But still, it's not the same, but it's similar in the sense that we live in a world where we realize that we have to find solutions, and we have to find radical solutions as well. Climate change obviously is the biggest one of our challenges, but then we were hit by pandemic a bit of more than a year ago. Something that was forecasted, but we still got we all got by surprise when it arrived. And it has become a pandemic. It's a global challenge, and we try to find solutions for that as well. This is not these two things, the pandemic and climate change, are not the only ones. The political situation, the global political situation, is a challenge as well. We all know this from the relationship of the major powers, United States, Russia, China. And we face a situation where we feel that we have to find new solutions as well. And politically, perhaps there's even something similar. The restlessness in politics is the same or similar situation 100 years ago and now. And in that situation, 100 years ago, Bauhaus was a solution. It was one way to find new solutions to the status the world, and Europe especially, was in. In many ways, the new European Bauhaus initiative, in my mind, comes timely, again, in a situation where we have a lot of challenges and we try to find solutions for those. So maybe we are even facing paradigm shifts. I think Kinge said it quite nicely when you spoke about transition. It's exactly the state where we are, not only in private companies or public organizations. The world situation as well is in transition and requires transition. So how do we do that? Now the Bauhaus initiative, the new Bauhaus initiative, which has now kicked off, it has some key issues I would like to talk to you about a bit. The key element, I would even say that the most important key element in the new European Bauhaus initiative is across disciplines. The requirement that if we want to create solutions, new solutions to the situation where we are now, it has to happen across disciplines. And this, of course, very much refers to what Kinge was saying about systemic change and systemic challenges, where complexity is something that defines the challenges. There's no easy way out. There's no easy way to find solutions. And this is where the necessity of disciplines working together to find solutions come into the picture. And of course, this is again something that was with us already with the old Bauhaus. What was behind the original Bauhaus was the medieval concept of workshops. And in medieval workshops, architects, artists, engineers at the time, etc., they worked together to create solutions. So we are again in the same situation where we expect and where we look for solutions that are made across disciplines and created across disciplines. So this is definitely one of the key pillars of the new European Bauhaus initiative. It also has three approaches, or you could say pillars as well: sustainability, inclusion, and aesthetics, or even the word beauty is used. I'm a design historian, art historian by my original training. And for me, the last one, aesthetics and beauty, is the most challenging concept. But sustainability in the context of the new European Bauhaus initiative, for me, it primarily means environmental sustainability, because the concept behind it is, or the challenge behind it is, climate change. But obviously inclusion and aesthetics, they are very much about sustainability as well. Inclusion is very much about social sustainability, and aesthetics maybe to some degree is about cultural sustainability. And what happens when we start creating solutions to challenges and we use sustainability, inclusion, and aesthetics as main and key pillars is that we create interpretations of all these three approaches, and they have to work together at the same time. So you can't really make you can make a difference, but you can't separate environmental sustainability from inclusion or aesthetics. And this is one of the challenges related to the new Bauhaus initiative, that we need to find solutions where all these meet and match and work together. Perhaps this is one of the big frames in what we are trying to achieve here. So what is very special about the Bauhaus initiative as well is that it's kicked off with a co-design process. Very rare for initiatives where the mother or father of the initiative is the European Union. I'm sure we are all aware of that. It's more top-down than bottom-up, and often the expectation of outcomes is already there. For me, the new Bauhaus initiative is anything but ready-made or solutions already known. It's a very honest co-design process, and very much a bottom-up process as well, where what is expected is that whether it's individuals or private businesses or organizations or teams across disciplines, that they produce the ideas and examples and define challenges. And only after that has happened, and this is actually the phase where we are at the moment, that all of you, as much as the rest of the world and especially the rest of Europe, can create ideas and identify challenges. This is happening at the moment, and once those voices are heard, once those are collected, the harvesting is there, and the outcome is analyzed. Then what happens is the next phase when we will really start creating the test Bauhauses in different parts of Europe. But this is very special, that it's a real co-design process, and why the design part is important. For me, it's for two reasons primarily. The first reason is that the only way to collect a richness and diversity of ideas is to start from bottom up and give the voice to enough users in different parts of our Europe. And the other reason for the importance of design in this and the role the design plays is that with design, we can support a cross-disciplines process. Designers' role is very much to facilitate the process, pull other disciplines together as well. There's one thing which I want to mention here still, and that's related to Bauhaus movement. The original Bauhaus from 100 years ago, we all know that it became a movement. We still feel, 100 years later, we feel the impact of the original Bauhaus. We know that a lot of the design education, architecture education happening in Europe and in some other parts of the world as well, is very much based on the 100-year-old concept of putting together different disciplines. The legacy is still there, and the legacy is very much still in our built environment as well. If you look around any city, any town in Europe, you can feel, you know that the impact of Bauhaus movement is there. There's certain type of aesthetic code, especially in my country, where the built environment structure doesn't have too long a history. It's very clear that the Bauhaus legacy is with us. Now, there has been some talk, discussions about the new European Bauhaus movement as well. There's a hope that it could become a movement as well. What I want to say about that is that hopefully so. I think there's a historical opportunity there. The way I described what happens in Europe, in the world at the moment, the seeds certainly are there, but you can't create a movement from top down. If the new European Bauhaus is to become a movement, it can only happen from bottom up. It's a grassroots level thought that something becomes a movement, and it's only a process in time. So maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years, maybe in 100 years, we will know if the new European Bauhaus became a movement as well. But what is certain is that if it is to happen, it happens because people and organizations on the grassroots level make it happen and become interested and enthusiastic about the possibilities produced by the initiative. I will finish by saying that what, again, sort of repeating what is so special about the initiative. As I said, it's not very ordinary for the European Commission to operate like this. So to create a bottom-up process and to kick off a co-design process is very relevant and very new. For design, for architecture, for arts, for engineering, for sustainability-related experts, whatever the field, it is an opportunity to create something new together and create responses to how we want our Europe to be in the years to come. And especially by the time we have responded to the promise we have now made that by 2050 Europe is climate neutral. A huge challenge, but this is one of the possibilities to make that really happen. The domain of design, I think it's important to note, especially for the design community, that the role of design in an initiative like this is very different from what it used to be as well. We have so much moved from process-wise, from design of products towards design of services and systems and challenges. So in this initiative, the role the design can play is very systemic, actually. And maybe what I would like to finish by is just to say that for me, the most important role of design is to support success of others, support success of different fields, different disciplines, support success of businesses in whatever field they operate, and public sector actors in whatever role they play in the society. And this initiative is certainly once in a lifetime chance for design to do that on the European level. So thank you for this, and I hope you have loads of questions to me as well.
I hope that as well. So are there any questions? Not written ones, but you can also speak up if you have one. Unlock your microphone if you have it.
Can I have the word? Yes.
Yes, please.
Päivi, thank you so much for your presentation. I would love to ask you about Finland. You mentioned in a very, very short way that patterns of and the mental patterns of Bauhaus are still in Finland. You can see everywhere. I totally agree with you, but I have also worked at the Aalto University and made my PhD there, and worked together with Professor Pekka Korvelmaa, who actually, in these days, when I started to make interviews about Bauhaus teaching methods in Finland and in Estonia, he claimed that there is no relations to Bauhaus. It's not direct because no Finnish designer has been studied there, but at the same time the concepts were spread through Alvar Aalto, through everybody. So what do you think as a historian? And
yeah, thank you. And I of course know that you have a history with Aalto University as well. And as it happens, I worked with Pekka when I was working at the Aalto University before it was named Aalto University. Well, I have to say that I disagree with Pekka to some extent. Obviously, he is correct in saying that there's no direct involvement or direct legacy from the point of view that Finnish designers, Finnish design professionals didn't study in the Bauhaus school. That's certainly true to a certain degree. But what I would say, and I would claim that the ethos of Bauhaus education is very much embedded in Finnish design education as well, and architecture education. So it's more about the zeitgeist, if you would want to use that word. It's what's in the air. Because what often happens is with movements like this is that you can't really, there becomes a time when you can't really put your finger in anything concrete, anything visible even, but you know that the ethos is there, and it's so deeply embedded in our mind and in our professional practice that we don't really necessarily identify where it comes from. So this is my reasoning behind why I say and I claim that in Finland, the Bauhaus, the learnings of Bauhaus, they are doing well still. They did well and they are still doing well. And of course now the great opportunity is how do we create a new, really impactful approach to what we want of our environment. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Thank you for your very good question, challenging question as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer as well, Päivi. And it puts things into context. And Gert Summa-Taavet, great question. I'm now giving the floor to Vera Winthagen. She is home officing, I guess, from Eindhoven. And please tell us in more detail what this new European Bauhaus is, since you're running it.
Yeah, well, I live in Brussels now, but I used to live in Eindhoven. And what is good to know, especially I think for this audience, is I'm a designer myself, an industrial designer. And in the new European Bauhaus team, we are a team of 11 people. There's an industrial designer, a landscape architect, and architect. And so the design field is represented in a way. And I was also just, when Kinge was talking and Päivi was talking, I was thinking back that 21 years ago, I did my final project in tree plast, which was injection molded, finding applications for injection molded wood resin chips. So it's a kind of, maybe I already joined the Bauhaus 20 years ago in a way. But I agree very much what Päivi is saying. Is it's a way of thinking that it's a zeitgeist, maybe, that the president of the commission kind of caught from the air and tried to pin down and made us work on. So yeah, and that's why I'm also myself quite enthusiastic about the initiative. I will quickly show you my slides, and you already addressed a little bit of the difficulty that we have inside the commission, which is you cannot start a movement top down. It's not about this. So when we sat together as a team, when we started, we said, so it's not about us creating a logo, a style, injection something top down. And this is why, for now, the logo of the new European Bauhaus, very simple example, is just a sketch, because that's how we feel. We're in sketch mode. We're in sketch phase. We're co-designing what it should be and what it is. And maybe in the next phase, it will change. It will be different. It will be a different logo. It could even have a different name, say some people, because that's what we're in. We're really in a co-design phase. And like Päivi said, this is quite special for the European Commission. We do work on complex problems a lot. I think all the work of the European Commission is tackling complex problems. And we also know that we cannot work with linear ways of thinking. So we have to work in ecosystems, bringing people together. And that's what design is very suitable for in the end. Not just talking about products or making things beautiful, but tackling this systemic way of thinking. So that's a little bit the vision on our side that is behind the way we started, and the way we started also as a team. So the movement, or the new European Bauhaus, is linked to the Green Deal, but it's trying to make it a bit more tangible. So it's really trying to tackle how we would like to live better together, both in buildings, but also in our neighborhoods, in our districts, but also in our lives. So it's also about our lifestyles. So it goes beyond the buildings, but also to the urban and rural spaces. And like Päivi, Päivi, you basically said all the nice words already. It's about sustainability, aesthetics, and inclusion, and bringing the three of them together. And I mean, coming from sustainable design myself, in the word sustainability is already quite a lot of these things. And like I said, it's a bit of a paradox trying to reinforce a movement top down, but we do see that we can maybe help, or giving a platform to think in a different way, to approach our work in a different way, to think about our life in a different way. So it's about the transformation in mindset and culture in places, but maybe also in markets, like Kinge was already showing. Maybe I shouldn't go too much in the timeline, but we have a co-design phase until the summer 2021. But we can already see that the whole project is actually a co-design process in a sense, because it doesn't stop right now. It's just the way we interact becomes a bit more tangible each phase that we go into. So this is the vision, or this is the way of working that we had in mind when we started. So we are growing a tree. We're actually trying to be the gardeners for growing a tree and an ecosystem. And you see the roots with the European Bauhaus announcement. Then we are collecting all the other roots. So what is already out there? What are people already thinking? What are the good initiatives? What are where are the places where things do not grow, where they should be growing, or where we think they could be growing? Where is the fertile ground? What is the water that is needed? Do we need birds? Do we need bees? So this is what where we're in right now. And by doing conversations and different kinds of events, not only us, but we also trigger other partners, people to have their own debates. We collect contributions that form this co-design phase. Then after September, we will have the first pilots. And because we also want to show a little bit what is out there and go to a bit more concrete phase. So we will have pilots with a support phase and a support network to see how far can we go. What are the frontier projects? What are the things that we can already empower to be launched as a first exploration together? That's the delivery phase with the pilots. And then we harvest. We start to harvest. Okay, if this is the frontier project, if this is the good things that are out there, what are then the fruits that we can also harvest, but also that fall from the tree and makes the ecosystem run, make it grow back again in a different way, in a different place, in a different on a different ground. So that's a little bit the way we thought that the work could be done and how we approach the initiative. This is the boring part. So we work directly under the steer of the cabinet of the president, but we have two commissioners. One responsible for work on the ground, which is DG Regio inside the commission. So she's responsible for all the local partnerships, and the other one responsible for education, but also for research. So it shows what the two main pillars are also for the project, for the initiative. And then we try to work as much as we can with partners. So right from the start of the initiative, and Päivi knows because she's the first partner we teamed up with, we asked people who have the same way of thinking to help us spread the word, give us feedback, but also to think with their networks how we should proceed. So as a real co-design initiative, we do it together. And we have now, I think, 330 applications for partnerships. I think it resonates. And this is part of the network we already have on board. First one is Beda and you see second, third, fourth, fifth is alto. So it's already also in there. So I already said something about the design phase, shortly about the delivery. We will start the delivery or the call for pilots starting in September. But then more things will come. So it's not an initiative with one set of a call, or it's we're trying to really also start a movement inside the European Commission, where we have different kinds of measures, different kinds of goals, both with money, but also flanking measures that maybe are not talking about money. And this is why I was very interested in your thoughts of all of you in this audience, because maybe there is legislation that should change. Maybe in a system there are other things that should change to accelerate this way of thinking. So
excuse me, Vera, for a moment.
Yeah.
There is some glitch with your slides. We can see some black boxes on them. So can you please stop sharing and reshare your screen?
I can, but I think it's has to do with my Zoom, because it happened already before. So I think it's not something I can really change, but let's see.
Restart sometimes helps, and yeah, your problem is not unique. So now I still have boxes now in different places.
I know. Now it's probably gone, huh?
No, still the boxes are there. But
okay.
Oh, now it's better. It's better.
Now it's better. So it means that I'm going to talk into the air. So I'm just going to take you out. So I cannot see you anymore. I just see my screen.
Okay.
And then probably it should be better.
Cool. But go ahead, please.
Okay. I was here, right? Yeah, delivery. And do like this. Yeah, so it's not only about having pilot projects or one specific goal. It's really about a support structure. So like Kinge already said, we see also different steps. It's not that we reach the goal at once, but we are looking for acupuncture points in a complex field. So about this, the co-design phase, or the design phase that we're in right now, we are inviting everybody to organize their own events, conversations, workshops. We have a website, and we created this website to also really collect all the different input or examples that are out there. So the website could help, hopefully, in understanding this complex field a little bit better by tapping into the collective intelligence that all of you have, or we all have. And it means that we are looking now for examples of existing projects, ideas, so new things that you think should be done, but also societal challenges and needs. So maybe certain way of tackling loneliness, or meeting people, or what are the basic needs that we see, that the most pressing issues in society that should be tackled. So very shortly, this was the launch, and we see that it did trigger a lot of conversations already. And this is an old slide, because I think we have about 9,000 followers now on Instagram, and having an Instagram page, like a dedicated Instagram page, is again something not revolutionary, but quite new for the Commission itself, to have it as a kind of engagement tool. So, and also having 9,000 followers for one specific initiative is already quite something. So it's really, it also triggers a new ways of thinking inside the Commission. These are some of the examples that you can also see on the Instagram page. And I checked Monday Monday we had 731 contributions, ideas, challenges, and examples. And one of the things that strike us is if you go to the website and you fill out an existing example of yourself, or maybe something that you've seen around you that you really liked, and you think, okay, the European Bauhaus, it should be about this. What we see is that we get a lot of contributions from micro enterprises and small and medium enterprises. And this says maybe not so much, but we can also, what we were thinking also in the conversations that we had so far, maybe this also says something about more local initiatives, or where initiatives start, or where a movement actually starts, like Päivi was saying, on the ground probably. So we're tapping into these kind of examples. And another thing that struck us, so it's not a finalized analysis. It's just we have a tool in the back office of the website where you can post your input, where we can see, and we also try to share as much as we can what comes out. So what we see emerging is also something that struck us, that people are not so much asking, for example, if we talk about the role of the European Commission, people are not so much asking about funding, but they're asking for visibility, networking, and support in having their idea brought further. It clearly triggers, and I think this is also tapping into what Päivi said before, into the creative field. So a lot of response that we get is from people who already understand what the Bauhaus was, and what it entails, and what it could be. So that says something about the kind of audience that is naturally attracted to this way of thinking and the initiative itself. Like I said, it's very much about local initiatives right now. And what it could also mean is that because people also start to talk about economy, it may also say something about a new kind of economy. And this is maybe also a bit a break with the old Bauhaus, because that was very much about mass production, about creating, form follows function, being as lean as possible. And we see in a subtle way, a new kind of outline emerging, is what we think. So this is, I won't go into this very much, but if you fill in this is the 3 core elements that Päivi also mentioned. So it's beautiful, we're looking for beautiful, inclusive, and sustainable examples. And it's funny to see where people place their own example, and what then the core of these entries is. So inclusion, as it is right now, is very much related to bringing people together, different ways of meeting. And aesthetics is very much the tactile qualities of that natural materials have. So we see new kinds of dimensions, or new kinds of keywords emerging.
Vera, I would love to kind of wrap your presentation up soon, since we have the discussion circle still waiting. And if you could kind of draw a line under your presentation, and then we can elaborate between us for.
Yeah, I just skip one slide, and the main question to you is, what do you think we should tackle? How could we support what you do in a good way? So where are the acupuncture points, according to you, that we as Commission could help to accelerate, speed up, use better? And that's it.
Thank you very much, Vera, for kind of walking us through it. So Päivi and Kinge, if you could open your microphones as well. And I'm really looking forward for questions. Write down your questions if you have some. And yeah, the first one gets the microphone as well. So please hurry up and grab it. Any live questions at the moment? So to kick the conversation going is, yeah, we could all see the complexity and broadness of it, and as you said, both Vera and Päivi, that it's we are now in the co-design phase, and you're looking for these crazy ideas to be collected. But how do we really can get from that very broad? Yeah, we want to solve everything. So how do we engage people? How do we engage creative people? And in this particular circle, we're talking about designers. So how can we make it? Where do we start, or should we? What should we do?
Vera, you go ahead first.
I just asked the question to all of you. What should we do? No, but no, I mean, what we see so far is, and this is also something I'm saying as a designer, I think what is very crucial is that we find out what the needs are, the needs of different kinds of people, the needs that are out there that, that people relate to most. So talking about different kinds of citizens, talking about old people, talking about young people, talking about, so what are the things that people would like to see really changed in their way of living, their surrounding? Or, I mean, maybe they will say, I would like to become circular, but I have this and this problem. It's too expensive, or it's just not, it doesn't bring the status that I want to have in my way of dressing or the way of commuting. Or I mean, that's of course one answer.
Mm-hmm. Are there any countries that are already more active, that have kind of started the journey?
Well, in the responses that we get, but it's now getting more equal. So until last week, we had many entries coming from Italy, from Spain, and from the Netherlands. But we see that a lot of other countries are catching up. What we are missing so far is France, Hungary, and we're getting the first good entries from the Baltics. So that's also nice to see.
Dan, may I just, there was Peter Post who raised his hand, so I think he has something to ask or say.
Yes, please, of course. Yeah, Peter.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes, hi, I'm Peter from Germany. We're a digital agency and also involved in circular. And as you asked what you could maybe change or provide, I think designers and creatives all have great ideas, but getting them from the prototype phase on the ground is really the hard part. And this is also where a lot of companies and organizations we work for get kind of wet feet and get scared of that last step. So it could be handy to have some kind of panel, easy, cheap possibility to test stuff that you come up with in a very quick and easy way across Europe. It would be probably easier if we organize this all together than everybody doing it for their own. And it would be very sweet if we would get some connection to the business part, because the creatives are pretty bad at that. So again, if there's some cheap, with the cheap, accessible way, also with people that actually speak our language, our creative language, that we can mirror ideas that we have and then we get a quick result on the business possibilities and the business viability of that. Especially, as you said, there are a lot of small business coming up with ideas, because a lot of great ideas die exactly at that phase. Mm. Do actually people out there need this? And is there some business behind it? Because the part before that, I think we have ideas piled up to the roof. Mm. So that would be cool if you could help there.
Can I just react to that quickly? I think this is a really important topic, certainly. And what you mentioned or said, that as there seems to be a lot of ideas flowing in from micro businesses and small and medium business-sized businesses, this is perhaps, Vera, to you as well, perhaps this is an issue that the Bauhaus team should really start thinking about, because it also relates to what Peter was saying about the death of valley from ideas to market-ready productions. And I just wanted to mention here that there's a funding scheme in Finland. It's been there for quite a while already, which is really easy, low-key, low bureaucracy, seed kind of, but also development, developing funding for creative industries. And it works perfectly for creative industries because it is so easy, low-key, and easy to report as well. But I think it would be important to develop this kind of funding schemes, not only for the creative sector, but for other sectors as well. So maybe this could be something that the Bauhaus initiative could take up in the delivery phase or for the delivery phase.
Yeah, and what I also hear you say, Peter, is fast testing if your idea is valid or not. So if it would fly in a business context. So having earlier on a kind of input from the business side to see how you could accelerate in a fast way instead of going through a lengthy process of because I'm also thinking also the commission itself, it has the EIT and the KICS, and it has already quite a lot of programs, but they're all very they're all big. And I like what Päivi is saying, because it's maybe this is something more for a member state, for a national government, or maybe we should have these examples out. I'm just asking, maybe we should have the Finnish example out there as one of the examples of this is how we could do it. So then we would provide these examples and feed this. But that's maybe the easy way out, Peter. I mean. I'm going back to you. Yeah.
I would also like to add a little bit to it, because what we see in our projects is that in the very early stage, in the very early prototyping stage, you already work with a lot of stakeholders together. So there is also really difficult interplay with who's going to fund the prototype. Is it research institutes? Are we going to do that? Is it the companies? They quite often don't do it because they don't see the value yet before it actually is prototyped. So I think it's also important not to get back to, because it is a certain way of doing how we've done it before, but with the real new projects, when we have new materials, new technologies, there are more stakeholders involved, and then I think the prototyping changes as well. And what we've actually started doing is testing digitally. So we have a platform now where we are testing digitally, and it is quicker, but it's still very, very new, and it's very on the ground still. But it's maybe also an idea of what you could do.
I love that idea of engaging digital tools to make it more tangible. So digitalization has democratized a lot of creative processes. If we think about musicians, they don't need to rent a studio. So how can we apply to design and architecture? It's in many ways, it's so much easier to do, to show your ideas. And so, yeah, let's use what our 21st century has given us as tools.
Dan, you are muted.
Peter.
You are muted again.
Yeah, my Zoom also fails me sometimes. But I heard, Peter, was it something that you wanted to add to the conversation?
Yeah, because you mentioned digital. As a digital agency, of course, we do digital testing all the time, but the scalability of that is an issue, because with small, regional, local initiatives, we're fighting against big global internet companies who can do A/B testing with 1 million people in a few seconds. And we have to push it to that level. So that's why I think something of that scale, which also would be good to have on a European level, and not only in Germany or one for Finland, because we're talking about Europe, we're not talking about something that needs to work in Germany. And it should be quite democratic, because, to be honest, not everyone has the luxury to be in Zoom calls about the new Bauhaus like we do here right at the moment. We have to think about people out there for whom Bauhaus is something that happens in the museum or with 2,000 euro Marcel Breuer chairs. So if it needs to be democratic, it should be tested and prototyped with real people all over the place. And that's something that not one single of us can just create like this. So that would be a cool infrastructure if that would be there.
Yeah.
But I think Markus from Estland, I think it's him.
Yeah, it is still me. Hi,
you.
guys. Thanks, Peter. Hi, guys. Great to see you guys. It's a very appealing new Bauhaus. It's a very appealing concept. Thanks for sharing this. I think what differs, like we discussed, or you discussed, the incubation, for example, or available funding in Finland, and otherwise that really is necessary to kickstart anything that is actually new. And I think is that how this type of thing differs is that is exactly the need that was also talked about earlier, that there's a kind of a divide between need and opportunity. And this kind of sustainability-minded design is actually catering for a pretty ambiguous need. So really defining and echoing also what Peter said, really understanding and defining what are the actual needs that need to be solved is kind of like a crucial, and the whole Europe is full of incubation, startup incubators and all of this. So maybe this is something that will be a little bit different, that it's not just the startup incubation is not just like grow and play in a big market, but there's always some kind of additional ambiguous need that is extremely important to kickstart any development work as well. To start the project, to start the prototype, it always caters for a need, but to be able to find it, yes, A/B testing is basically also kind of in retrospect, you're able to define a need from there. But I think if this becomes more concrete, and if real companies are able to voice their needs, I think that it makes it so much easier to respond to them as well.
So you're saying that also companies could share their needs, for example, production companies or something like this?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks for summarizing it. Yeah. Because it is, yeah, we all have, exactly, the needs are a bit different. The production company has different needs than us as citizens. And our needs, that's what makes them ambiguous, is of course the everyday life plus the future generations, and everything is all together. But those we expect to really take up on the movement are the ones who shape the reality and shape the future. So they might not even understand that they have this need. So this translation process is very crucial, and getting them on board to be able to identify and voice their needs. Basically, it just makes the whole beehive go wild. Like designers all over the world will jump on board immediately.
That's a very, very good thought you shared. Dan, I see there's another hand raised.
Anna has a hand up, so please ask your question or share your thoughts.
Thank you for the presentations, everybody, and hello to everybody. I'm an industrial design engineer originally from Hungary, and I have two thoughts. One is connected to what Peter said, and basically I've been attending these workshops where I have heard a lot of stories with people who are not only, who are not designers, architects, engineers, but what you previously described as like grassroots movement, or people from all kind of walks of life who have creative ideas for solving sustainability issues, for example. And I think people are more creative than what you have described in a way, because they do find ways of doing this phase of design validation themselves with their own ways of doing things. What a lot of people struggle with, I think, is that when they reach the phase that they validated their initial idea and they have a prototype, they struggle with finding manufacturing companies who are ready to switch or accommodate whatever they have in mind. And so that was the one thought, is that the prototyping, I'm more optimistic about people finding a way to validate their designs. So maybe I'm naive about that. Anyway, the second thought is that about the activity level of certain countries, but somebody might have already spoken on that. Mainly, I think with my country, there might be a problem with understanding this initiative if it's not translated. And that would be true for the SMEs here, I think. So, but I think somebody might have already spoken on that. So that was my 2 points.
Well,
thank
you, Anna, for that. But yeah, we haven't spoken about yet translating the initiative to local languages. So how about that?
Well, the website is translated in different languages, but that, of course, doesn't say anything, because it needs to appeal to the people in the country. And one of the things that we get, especially, well, there are certain countries and also certain groups of people where the basic needs now, especially after the pandemic, is surviving, having a job at all, finding a decent place to live. I know it's also true for a lot of designers. I mean, it's not everybody has the luxury to talk about Bauhaus, while the Bauhaus is actually about making things affordable and beautiful and sustainable at the same time. So maybe we need to find, and this is maybe a question back to Anna, what would appeal to a Hungarian audience?
Well, that there is that attitude that we are not rich enough to think sustainable, but how can we turn that around? That's a big challenge. And the whole thing that actually sounds like the challenge here is how do we reach people who are not sustainably thinking? And I'm afraid it's still a vast majority that this initiative appeals and talks to people who are already in the mood, and it's good that we're discussing how to keep it going. But how do we get out of that small circle of people who are already relatively small, if we talk about all of Europe? But still, how do we get to everyone on the streets so that it becomes relevant to them as well? And that's why I also maybe will poke you with something that Marcus brought up, engaging business, because if you like the first Bauhaus, it was about mass production. Once you do something right in mass production, it will reach everyone. So how do we engage, inspire, get along with businesses so that they will not just realize our ideas, but will be a part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Can I say something for on this? I'm sure others will have lots to add, but I'm thinking that maybe in the response so far reached by the Commission in the sort of the co-design phase, there's possibly a seed for change already. Because when what happens or has obviously happened is that a lot of micro businesses, a lot of small and medium-sized businesses have already reacted to the initiative, sharing their thoughts, ideas, challenges. Maybe this is an indication of a change already taken place. But the critical issue, of course, is what happens next. If that has happened to some extent already, not enough, so we still need to work on it. But if this sign already exists, what do we need to do to strengthen that? And I think Peter already in a way touched that when you were talking about the way the ways we could support the processes or new ways we should support processes. So I think what is essential and critical is to be very alert of what happens in the process kicked off already, and then be quick enough to react to the weak signals at some points, and then not that weak signals, but real proof of that there's something new happening there. Yeah. So I think this is also the opportunity in the initiative.
Yeah, I saw in the chat somebody saying having an appealing narrative, and I think if you talk about transition theories or theories about transitions or movement, and then they say two things: that you take away the main blocks, but you also give the ones that are ahead more space. And I think the next phase, the delivery phase of the new European Bauhaus, should do this, showcasing all those nice narratives. So all the good narratives that are already out there, give them the space, the spotlight, the showing that it's possible, and also maybe at the same time trying to take away the things that block most. Because if you, but this is more me coming from a sustainability background. It's very difficult to reach everybody, the whole country or the whole audience, or I mean, it took years in sustainability to get there. So maybe that should not be the goal for now.
Yeah, but by talking, Phoebe, can you talk, or you said you were in a library, so you can write, I guess, or can you speak as well? Picking up on Phoebe's thought, and if you can join me, is that we need by narratives, I guess it means that we need real stories, real examples, that something that people will start talking about. It's if we talk about the first Bauhaus, it's not all, but most people have some kind of relation, even if I don't have a Bauhaus object, but at least know how it looks like, and probably I know why it was created that way. I can love it or hate it, but I have a relationship to it. So we need these stories, these objects, these failures or successes that we can start talking about, and then it becomes much more real, doesn't it? Kinge, quiet for quite a while, so can you comment on that as well? Because your example was very, very real in a way.
Yes, I think we definitely need the narratives, but to actually create such a project, it takes a long time. Like, we started with the paper bottle in 2015, and yes, we have more projects now, and some of the visuals that I showed are projects that are further now but projects that we cannot show because of companies. It's a long process, and I don't think we can create examples overnight, especially the ones that we need. So then we must look at a sort of midway. And why I also specifically wanted to show the paper bottle is that because it's not circular. It's not, if you look on LinkedIn, people are writing like this is the biggest greenwashing ever, and people are super negative about it, and fair enough, it's maybe like it's one part of the story, but it's about that transition, and it's very difficult then to nail down the right narrative with these examples. So I'm not really giving you answers here, only more questions. But yes, we need more examples, but we also need to stay true in our examples. And it's going to take time. But yeah, I think our next example will be done in half year, or in maybe in 1 year. And yeah, then you have the next one. Yeah.
But we as designers know that the prototype doesn't have to be perfect. So it doesn't work all the way. It can look ugly. We know that it will be aesthetic in the end, but we test other features of it. So
it depends on the story you want to tell with it. And if the story that I wanted to tell today is about transition and about collaboration, but if you're going to use social media, like in my previous roles, especially at EMF, we used a lot of social media to tell the story, but people take their own turn on it, and it can blow up in unexpected ways, and you need to be quite careful in telling the stories and what you're going to tell with it. So I think it's a bigger myriad that we would wish for, and it's quite easy to say that we need more examples, but I think how to is actually a little bit more of a struggle, and I think the paper bottle shows it.
I think this is sorry,
go ahead.
No, but I think this is exactly the one of the three words that the new Bauhaus has. That's the beautiful, that the narrative doesn't have to be like an intellectual narrative, but what we are talking about as well is the visual clues. That and it's a great challenge, because early Bauhaus had visual clues of mass production, of things that you recognize when you see the things. And now with, let's say, in the example of paper bottle, there's this kind of quasi-organic or quasi-sustainable thing that everything paper, cardboard, or anything will be super cool, like this bamboo toothbrush that has nylon threads. But this is a visual clue, and people like it. It's just the problem is that it's oftentimes inaccurate. Now, I'd like to pose a question like, what could be the visual clue for circular products? That you look at them and you recognize them. Is it possible even? And can this be the narrative?
I think if I can answer to that, I would love to have transparency. So everything to be absolutely true to what it is. Because if we're not doing that, we never know what we'll have in our hands. We never know what to believe. So I think just the biggest factor is 100% true of what but then again, how do you communicate that? But if you pose this question to me, I said that's absolutely the most important thing about our case studies.
But this is excellent, because a product can also embody this transparency one way or another, either written on it, that what it consists of, or just there's something about what it truly is. I agree.
Peter, I see your hand, but I will just shortly comment on Kinge's words, that you said that we have to be very careful so that it doesn't kind of blow in our face or gets interpreted wrong. But I would kind of argue against it in a way that that old saying of any news is good news. So we need to get people starting to talk about it and discussing it. I know it hurts and you want them to get it right, and then they are getting completely wrong sometimes. But the moment they start to talk about it, then you can start a conversation as well.
I think we can have a long discussion about that, but looking at the time, and Peter wanted to ask a question. I think,
Peter.
Yeah, I wanted to add something about that necessity for a narrative. You mentioned the context of the Bauhaus, the first Bauhaus in the war, and after the Second World War, something interesting happened, because there was the need for very quick also industrial progress, and what our industry did is they created images of futures of cities built of steel and glass and flying cars and all that stuff. We all know how these 50s illustrations look like, of happy families flying in their flying cars across cities of glass. And
we are still waiting for these flying cars.
We're waiting for the flying cars, but a lot of the other shit we actually built, and it was not all a good idea.
Yeah.
But these images worked. So something that our industry is pretty good at, creating these images that create desire. We proved that worked, and it partly went south, but the images themselves, they work. So I think Kinge also mentioned that how important visualization is. It's banal, but I think that works for us, and it also works for a broad audience. But we need alternative images of alternative futures. And we don't solve the problem just by putting trees on buildings that are still made of glass and steel. So to create these images where people say, well, this is fun. Actually, we don't have to rebuild the whole city. It's just changing things about the traffic and how we do mobility creates a great future I want to live in. I very much love this very brave mayor of Paris who took away cars and other stuff from the citizens of Paris. They really love driving cars. I've been there. And she did this by creating these beautiful science fiction-like Hollywood quality images of Paris with less cars, but beautiful boulevards. And people re-elected her, which is crazy because this is Paris and cars. So we are able to do that. This is something that designers are really good at. We just have to create alternative images. So I think this is a way to inject that narrative in a way that has proven to work.
Paris actually has done actual stuff as well. My son was there a couple of months ago, and cycling through the tunnels, which were built for cars, but they are now bike lanes, and that was amazing. So yeah, it's becoming real if you have the right initiative and right people behind it. But images, I very much agree on that. And they have to be new, they have to be surprising. So if you just draw more trees and people on bicycles and lower buildings and people eating organic food, then yeah, we've seen that all. So yeah, how do we surprise? How do we build new visions? That's the challenge. And I guess that's what this new European Bauhaus is good for, so that it gives us some kind of a framework, or it is an initiative. So let's pick up on that itch and create something. So I would, on that note, I will end this discussion today. I think we gathered some really nice thoughts. Thank you, Kinge, thank you, Päivi, and thank you, Vera, for being with us today. And Kinge and Vera, can you share your presentations, or how about that? Good, very good. So we'll have your these two presentations for sharing. Thanks everyone for being with us. Thanks for the great questions, and see you at the next how-to session.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dan.